The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, they looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They dreamed of distant worlds and alien civilizations. They wrote stories about meeting beings from other planets. Some stories were hopeful, others were filled with fear. But humanity never stopped wondering. In the year 2147, they finally got their answer. A massive ship appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. It was larger than any city on the planet. Its surface was smooth and black, like polished stone from another world. For 3 days, it simply floated there. The people of Earth watched with a mixture of terror and excitement. Governments argued about what to do. Military forces prepared for the worst. Religious leaders spoke of signs and wonders. On the 4th day, the ship sent a message. "We are the Galactic Concord. You are not alone. We have been watching your species for some time. You have reached the stars. You have proven yourselves worthy of contact. We invite you to join our community of civilizations." The galaxy, it turned out, was very old. 12 great species had formed the Concord over 1,000,000 years ago. They had built an empire of 10,000 worlds. They had developed technologies that seemed like magic to human eyes. Faster than light travel, instant communication across impossible distances, machines that could create almost anything from raw energy, medical science that had conquered death itself for some species. Humanity was the youngest species ever invited to join. The Concord's leaders looked at these strange, soft creatures from a small blue world with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Humans were so fragile, they lived such short lives. They were still fighting wars among themselves when first contact happened. Surely, the elder species thought, these beings would take thousands of years to mature, but they were members of the Concord now. The rules demanded they be given a chance. The first human ambassador to the Galactic Council was a woman named Sarah Chen. She was 63 years old, a former professor of linguistics who had spent her life studying how beings communicated. When she stood before the council for the first time, she looked very small. The chamber was designed for species much larger than humans. The Valkyrie delegates towered over her, their scales gleaming under the artificial lights. The Synthera Collective's representatives floated in tanks of liquid, their tentacles waving gently. The Kethron Dominion's warriors sat in armored suits that made them look like living statues. Sarah Chen smiled at all of them. "We are honored to be here," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "Humanity has dreamed of this moment for a very long time. We have so much to learn from all of you. And perhaps, in time, we might have something to offer in return." The Valkyrie High Speaker made a sound that might have been laughter. "What could your species possibly offer us? You have barely left your own planet. You still measure time in rotations of your single star. You are children playing at civilization." Sarah Chen did not stop smiling. "Children grow up," she said, "and sometimes they surprise their elders." The first 100 years of humanity's membership in the Concord were difficult. The elder species did not take humans seriously. Trade agreements were written to favor everyone except humanity. Human colonies were given the worst planets, the ones too hot or too cold or too far from major trade routes. When humans complained, the council listened politely and then did nothing. The Valkyrie were the worst. Their empire was ancient and proud. They had been the dominant military power in the galaxy for 500,000 years. They looked at humans the way a person might look at an insect that had learned to speak. Amusing, perhaps, but ultimately insignificant. Valkyrie ships would often, accidentally, enter human space. They would scan human colonies without permission. Sometimes they would take things, resources, technology. Once, they took a human research station, and everyone in it. When the human government demanded answers, the Valkyrie said it had been in disputed territory. The council agreed. The 3,000 humans who had lived on that station were never seen again. Ambassador Chen filed a formal complaint. It was her 97th complaint in 50 years. Like all the others, it disappeared into the bureaucracy of the council and was never addressed. She retired shortly after. Her replacement was a man named David Okonkwo. He was younger, but his eyes held the same patient determination. "We will continue to follow the proper channels," he announced at his first council session. "Humanity believes in the rule of law. We believe that justice, though slow, will eventually prevail." The Synthera Collective's chief delegate made a bubbling sound that served as their version of laughter. "You humans are so optimistic. It is almost charming. In 1,000 years, you will learn that the galaxy does not reward patience. It rewards power. David Okonkwo nodded slowly. Perhaps. But we have found that patience and power are not opposites. Sometimes, they are the same thing. No one understood what he meant. They would learn. Eventually. The Kethron Dominion was not as openly hostile as the Velkari, but they were more dangerous in their own way. They were a species of conquerors, but they conquered through laws rather than weapons. Their legal scholars were the finest in the galaxy. They knew every loophole, every technicality, every way to turn the Concord's rules against those who did not understand them. In the year 2289, they used an ancient statute to claim 3 human colony worlds. The law had been written before humans existed. It stated that any world not continuously occupied for more than 50 galactic cycles could be claimed by any Concord member. The human colonies had been established for only 47 cycles. 12 million humans lived on those worlds. They had built cities and farms and schools. They had raised families there. Now they were told they had to leave. The council heard humanity's appeal. The Kethron legal team presented their case with cold precision. Every point was documented. Every precedent was cited. The law was clear. Ambassador Okonkwo stood before the council. The law may be clear, he said, but justice is not served by removing 12 million people from their homes over a technicality. These worlds were empty when we arrived. We have harmed no one by settling them. Surely the spirit of the law matters as much as its letter. The Kethron chief delegate clicked his mandibles. The law is the law, human. If you do not like it, you should not have joined the Concord. The council voted. Humanity lost, 7-5. The evacuation took 3 years. Some humans refused to leave. The Kethron sent soldiers to remove them. There was no violence, but there were deaths. Elderly humans who could not survive the journey, children who became sick in the crowded transport ships, families torn apart by the chaos of forced relocation. Humanity documented everything. Every name, every face, every story. A young officer named Elena Vance watched the evacuation from a transport ship. She was only 30 years old, but she had already decided what she would do with her life. She would join the diplomatic corps, she would work her way up to ambassador, and she would make sure that nothing like this ever happened again. How do you stay so calm? Another officer asked her. After everything they've done to us, Elena looked out at the stars. Her home world was one of those being taken. Her parents had refused to leave and were being carried off the planet in restraints. Because anger is a fire, she said quietly. If you let it burn freely, it destroys everything, including yourself. But if you contain it, if you control it, it becomes something else. It becomes power. She turned to face her companion. Her eyes were dry, but something burned behind them. We will remember this. All of it. And one day, they will understand what they have done. 200 years passed. Humanity spread across the galaxy, always taking the scraps that other species did not want. They built colonies on frozen moons and burning deserts and planets so small they barely had gravity. They learned to survive anywhere. They learned to build anything. They learned to wait. The Concord's elder species watched humanity with diminishing interest. Humans were useful. They decided. They worked hard. They were clever with their hands. They made good servants and trading partners. But they would never be a major power. They were too young, too weak, too patient. Elena Vance became the human ambassador to the Galactic Council in 2341. She was 120 years old now. Her life extended by the medical technology humanity had carefully developed in secret. She looked 60. She felt 30. Her mind was sharper than it had ever been. At her first council session, the Velkari High Speaker greeted her with the same condescension his predecessors had shown every human ambassador. Another human diplomat, he said, his forked tongue flickering. How delightful. Tell me, Ambassador, do you bring yet another complaint? Another petition for us to ignore? Elena smiled. It was the same smile Sarah Chen had worn 200 years ago. Patient, calm, giving nothing away. No complaints today, High Speaker. I simply wish to introduce myself and express humanity's continued commitment to peaceful cooperation within the Concord. The High Speaker's eyes narrowed slightly. Something in her tone bothered him, though he could not say what. Peaceful cooperation, he repeated. Yes, your species is very committed to peace. Some might say, too committed. There are those who wonder if humans are capable of fighting at all. Elena's smile did not waver. We are capable of many things, High Speaker. Perhaps more than you realize. She turned and walked back to her seat before he could respond. That night, she met with Admiral Chen Wei aboard the flagship of the hidden human fleet. It was called the Remembrance. It was the largest warship ever built by human hands, and it was only one of 12,000. For 50 years, humanity had been building. In secret shipyards beyond Concord space, in asteroid fields and hidden moons, they had constructed a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their scientists had developed weapons that no other species possessed. Their engineers had created ships faster and stronger than anything in the Valkyrie arsenal. Admiral Chen Wei was a direct descendant of Sarah Chen, the first human ambassador. He was 200 years old and looked 40. He had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. How much longer? He asked Elena. She looked out at the fleet stretching before them. Thousands of ships, hidden in the dark between stars, waiting for an order that might never come. As long as necessary, she said. We are patient. Patience has limits, the Admiral said quietly. Even human patience, Elena nodded. Yes, but we are not there yet. The galaxy still has a chance to do the right thing. We have to give them that chance. And if they don't take it, Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but there was iron beneath the softness. Then they will learn what happens when human patience ends, and they will never forget. She returned to the council the next day, and the day after, and every day for the next 6 years. She filed complaints and petitions and appeals. She spoke calmly and reasonably about human rights and fair treatment and the principles the Concord was supposed to stand for. And every night, she added new entries to the archive of wrongs. Every death, every insult, every broken promise, and ignored plea for help. 17 million entries. Humanity remembered everything. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The archive of wrongs was not a building. It was not a computer system. It was something more. It existed in the mind of every human being alive. From the moment a human child could understand language, they learned about the archive. Not to breed hatred, not to create anger, but to remember, because humanity had learned, over thousands of years of history on Earth, that forgetting was the first step toward allowing evil to repeat itself. Every human school had a wall of names. These were simple walls, usually made of plain white stone, covered with the names of humans who had died because of the actions of other species. The names were small, written in neat rows, stretching from floor to ceiling. Some walls were so covered that new names had to be added in smaller and smaller letters. Children would walk past these walls every day. They would stop sometimes and read a name. They would learn the story behind it. A scientist killed when the Valkyrie destroyed a research station. A farmer who died during the forced relocation from Kethron claimed worlds. A merchant whose ship was destroyed by pirates operating from Synthara space. Each name was a person. Each person had a story. Humanity made sure those stories were never forgotten. Ambassador Elena Vance had memorized over 10,000 names. She could recite them in order, along with how each person had died and who was responsible. She did this every morning as a form of meditation. It kept her focused. It reminded her why she did the work she did. It also reminded her why patience was so hard. The Synthara Collective had been the first to exploit humanity, even before the Valkyrie became openly hostile. The Synthara were traders by nature. They bought and sold everything, including information, technology, and sometimes people. They had no laws against slavery, only against unprofitable transactions. In the early years of humanity's membership in the Concord, the Synthara had offered to help humans develop faster than light technology. The price seemed reasonable. Humanity accepted. Only later did they discover that the technology was deliberately flawed. Human ships would sometimes drop out of faster-than-light travel in random locations, often in deep space far from any help. Thousands of humans died in the void before the flaw was discovered. When humanity complained, the Synthara claimed ignorance. They offered a refund. They expressed their deepest condolences. They did not offer to fix the problem or explain why their technology was defective. Humanity learned to build their own ships after that. The pirate fleets that operated from Synthara space were never officially connected to the collective. The Synthara government insisted they were independent criminals beyond their control. But the pirates always seemed to know exactly when human merchant ships would be passing through certain areas. They always had the latest weapons and the best intelligence, and they always returned to Synthera space after their raids, where they were never pursued. Over 50 years, these pirates killed more than 80,000 human traders, colonists, and travelers. They stole cargo worth billions of credits. They captured humans and sold them to species that had uses for slaves. Humanity filed complaint after complaint with the Galactic Council. The Synthera expressed shock and promised to investigate. Nothing ever changed. The Kethron Dominion was more direct in their cruelty. They were a species that believed strongly in hierarchy. Every being had a place in their society, from the high lords at the top to the slave races at the bottom. They had conquered dozens of species over their long history, reducing them to servants and laborers. When they took the 3 human colony worlds in 2289, they did not simply remove the human population. They kept some behind. The legal justification was complex, involving ancient laws about permanent residence and integrated labor forces. The practical result was that 200,000 humans were classified as Kethron property. These humans were not treated badly. By Kethron standards, they were fed, they were housed, they were given work to do, but they were not free. They could not leave, they could not communicate with the rest of humanity. They were owned. Ambassador David Okonkwo fought for 12 years to free them. He used every legal avenue available. He made speeches to the council that brought some delegates to tears. He negotiated, begged, and threatened in private meetings with Kethron officials. Finally, the council ruled that the humans must be released. It was a rare victory. Humanity celebrated for days, but when the freed humans finally arrived at human space, their stories painted a different picture. 12 years of captivity had killed nearly half of them, not through violence, but through neglect, medical care that was not provided, food that was not suitable for human bodies, living conditions that were comfortable for Kethron but slowly poisoned humans. Of the 200,000 taken, only 112,000 returned alive. David Okonkwo added 88,000 names to the archive that day. He retired shortly after. Some said the work had broken him. Others said he simply could not pretend to be patient anymore. Elena Vance took his place 10 years later. She had studied every complaint he had filed, every speech he had made, every argument he had presented. She knew exactly why he had failed. The council did not respond to reason. They did not respond to emotion. They only responded to power. Humanity did not have power yet, but they were building it. The hidden shipyards existed in places no one else would think to look. Asteroids in uninhabited systems, moons orbiting gas giants far from major trade routes, stations deep in nebulae where sensors could not penetrate. Humanity had learned to hide. Admiral Chen Wei's grandfather had commanded the first secret military project. His father had expanded it. Now Chen Wei led a force that could challenge any power in the galaxy, but he hoped he would never have to use it. "Every ship we build is a failure," he told his officers. "It means diplomacy is not working. It means we are preparing for a future where peace is not possible." His officers understood. They built the ships anyway. The weapons humanity developed were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The elder species had been using the same basic technologies for millions of years. Their shields worked on certain principles. Their weapons used certain energies. Everyone knew how everything worked because everyone had been doing it the same way forever. Humanity did not have millions of years of tradition. They had fresh eyes and creative minds and a burning need to protect themselves. They invented new principles. They discovered new energies. They built weapons that could bypass shields completely, and engines that could outrun anything in the Velkari fleet. The Velkari did not know any of this. They continued to treat humans as insects. In 2338, a Velkari battle group entered human space and destroyed a mining colony. The official reason was that the colony was too close to Velkari territory and represented a potential security threat. The real reason was that a Velkari noble wanted the mineral rights to the asteroids the colony was mining. 4,000 humans died in the attack. The Velkari did not bother to let them evacuate first. Ambassador Elena Vance requested an emergency session of the council. She presented evidence of the attack, including recordings from the colony's sensors showing Velkari ships firing on civilian structures. The Velkari High Speaker barely glanced at the evidence. "The recordings are clearly fabricated," he said. Humans are known for their primitive technical abilities. They cannot be trusted. Our people are dead, Elena said. Her voice was calm, but everyone in the chamber felt something cold in her words. 4,000 civilians, miners, families. They had no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. The High Speaker's tongue flickered. Regrettable, if true. But we have only your word that this colony ever existed. Perhaps these supposed victims were criminals hiding from human law. Perhaps they were pirates. Elena stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I see, she said. Thank you for making humanity's position clear. She turned and walked out of the chamber. That night, she traveled to the Remembrance for a meeting with Admiral Chen Wei. The fleet had grown again. 15,000 ships now waited in the darkness between stars. How much longer? The Admiral asked. I don't know, Elena admitted. But I know it cannot go on forever. Something will break eventually. Them, or us. We are stronger than we have ever been, Chen Wei said. If the order comes tomorrow, we can win. Elena shook her head. Winning is not enough. We need to win in a way that makes sure this never happens again. We need them to understand, truly understand, that they can never treat us this way again. She looked out at the fleet. Thousands of ships, built in secret over generations, each one representing countless hours of labor by humans who hoped they would never be used. When we move, she said quietly, it has to be so complete, so overwhelming, that no species ever forgets. For 1,000 years, for 10,000 years, they must remember what happens when humanity's patience ends. The Admiral nodded slowly. And until then, we wait, we document, we remember, and we prepare. The years passed. The wounds continued to accumulate. A human diplomatic ship was destroyed by unknown attackers near Valkyrie space. 62 dead, including 3 of Elena's closest friends. A human medical mission to a neutral world was denied landing rights because the Kethron claimed the world as part of their territory. The mission was carrying vaccines for a plague. 2 million beings died, including the 1,200 humans who had volunteered to help them. A Synthera trading company sold human colonists contaminated food supplies. The contamination was a known toxin that affected human nervous systems. 30,000 people suffered permanent brain damage before the source was discovered. Each time, humanity filed complaints. Each time, the Council did nothing. Elena Vance stood before the Council more than 1,000 times over the years. Her speeches became famous throughout human space. She never shouted. She never lost her temper. She presented facts calmly and asked for justice clearly, and she was ignored. Every single time. But she was not speaking only to the Council. She was speaking to history. Every word was recorded. Every rejection was documented. Humanity was building a case, not for the Council, but for themselves. When the time came, no one would be able to say humanity had not tried every other option first. Admiral Chen Wei received reports every day from his intelligence network. Human agents had infiltrated every major power in the Concord. They knew the location of every military base, every shipyard, every weapon factory. They knew the weaknesses in every defense system. The Valkyrie believed their fleet was invincible. They were wrong. The Synthera believed their information networks were secure. They were wrong. The Kethron believed their legal systems made them untouchable. They were wrong. Humanity had learned to be patient. But they had also learned to be thorough. The archive now contains 17 million entries, Elena reported to the Admiral during one of their meetings. Every wrong, every death, every insult. It is complete and accurate and beyond dispute. Is it enough? The Admiral asked. Elena was quiet for a moment. There is one more thing that must happen. One final act so terrible that even the most peaceful among us will support what comes next. I do not know what it will be, but I know it is coming. I can feel it. She turned to face him. Her eyes were old, older than her face, carrying the weight of centuries of grief. When it happens, Admiral, you must be ready. We will have only one chance. If we fail, if we show any weakness, they will unite against us and destroy us completely. Everything our people have suffered will be for nothing. Admiral Chen Wei nodded slowly. We will be ready, I promise you. Elena smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Then we continue to wait. We continue to be patient. We continue to hope that somehow, the galaxy will choose to do the right thing. She looked out at the stars. But if they do not, they will learn that human patience has a price, and they will pay it in full. New Geneva was the jewel of human civilization. It had been named after an ancient Earth city that once represented peace and diplomacy. The founders had hoped their new world would carry those same values into the stars. For 200 years, it had done exactly that. 12 million humans lived on New Geneva. It was a world of universities and libraries, museums and concert halls. The greatest human minds came there to study and create. Artists, scientists, philosophers, and teachers gathered from across human space to share their knowledge and their dreams. Children were everywhere on New Geneva. The planet had more schools than any other human world. Families moved there specifically because it was safe, peaceful, and dedicated to learning. There were no military bases, no weapons factories, no strategic value whatsoever. New Geneva was exactly what it appeared to be. A world devoted to culture, education, and the belief that all beings could learn to live together in peace. The Velkari High Command saw it as something else entirely. High Commander Vexral had ruled the Velkari military for 300 years. He was old by any standard. His scales faded to a dull gray. His movements slower than they once were. But his mind was still sharp, and his hatred of humanity had only grown stronger with time. He had watched humans for 2 centuries. He had seen them take every insult without fighting back. He had seen them file their pathetic complaints and make their pathetic speeches. He had seen them bow and scrape before the council like servants begging for scraps from their master's table. It disgusted him. They are weak, he told his officers. They have always been weak. But weakness can be dangerous if left unchecked. A weak species that grows too numerous, that spreads too far, that develops too much technology, can become a problem even without meaning to. He called up a holographic display of New Geneva. The planet glowed blue and green, beautiful and fragile. This world represents everything wrong with humanity. They build schools instead of shipyards. They teach philosophy instead of warfare. They believe that knowledge and culture can protect them from the universe's harsh realities. He made a gesture, and the display zoomed in on the planet's cities. Millions of heat signatures, densely packed together. So many humans, living so close, with no defenses at all. We will teach them a lesson, Vexral said. We will show them what happens to species that refuse to understand their place in the galaxy. When we are finished, the humans will never again make the mistake of thinking they are our equals. His officers shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a younger commander named Kelvan, spoke up. High Commander, New Geneva has no military value. It is a civilian world. The Council will surely object to any action against it. Vexaral's tongue flickered in amusement. The Council has never once ruled against us in any matter involving humans. They will object, perhaps, but they will do nothing. They never do. But the humans themselves, Kelvan pressed. They have been remarkably passive until now. An attack of this nature might finally provoke them to respond. Vexral laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound. That is exactly the point, young one. I want them to try. I want to see what happens when these pathetic creatures finally attempt to fight back. It will prove once and for all that they are nothing, that they have always been nothing. He turned back to the display. Prepare the fleet. We move in 3 days. Ambassador Elena Vance was speaking to the Galactic Council when it happened. The session was a routine one, addressing trade agreements that had been pending for decades. Elena had made these arguments before, many times. She was asking for fair treatment of human merchants in Synthera ports. She was asking for an end to tariffs that discriminated specifically against human goods. She was asking for basic justice. No one was really listening. The Velkari delegation was talking among themselves. The Kethron were reviewing documents on their personal screens. The Synthera seemed to be sleeping. Though it was hard to tell with their species, Elena kept speaking anyway. That was her job. That was what humanity did. They kept trying, kept hoping, kept believing that someday the galaxy would choose to be better than it was. Then her personal communicator vibrated. She paused mid-sentence and looked down at the device. The message was marked urgent, priority 1, eyes only. Those designations were almost never used together. My apologies, she said to the council. I must step away for a moment. The Velkari high speaker snorted. Of course. Humans always have more important matters to attend to than the business of the council. Elena did not respond. She walked to the small alcove behind the human delegation's seating area and activated the message. The first thing she saw was fire. The recording was from New Geneva's orbital defense platform. It showed a Valkyrie battle fleet, dozens of warships, emerging from faster-than-light travel directly above the planet. No warning, no demands, no communication of any kind. They simply began firing. Elena watched as energy weapons struck the capital city. Buildings that had stood for 200 years collapsed in seconds. Streets filled with fleeing people were vaporized. Schools, universities, hospitals, all of them targeted with systematic precision. The recording's audio was filled with screams, millions of voices crying out in terror and pain. She heard children calling for their parents. She heard parents calling for their children. She heard the sounds of a civilization dying. The death toll counter in the corner of the recording climbed with horrifying speed. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. By the time she finished watching, it had passed 1 million. Elena stood very still for a long moment. Her face showed nothing. Her hands did not shake. Her eyes did not water, but something inside her changed. For 200 years, she had believed in the possibility of peace. She had believed that patience and reason could eventually prevail. She had believed that the galaxy's elder species would someday recognize humanity's worth and treat them as equals. That belief died in the fire of New Geneva. Along with 1 million of her people, she walked back into the council chamber. The other delegates were still talking among themselves, unaware of what was happening. The Valkyrie High Speaker was laughing at some private joke with his aides. Elena stood at the podium. She did not call for attention. She simply stood there, waiting. Slowly, the chamber grew quiet. Something in her presence demanded silence. Something in the way she stood, perfectly still, perfectly calm, made even the most arrogant delegates stop and pay attention. "I have just received a report," she said. Her voice was steady, but it carried a new quality. Something cold, something final. "A Valkyrie fleet is currently attacking New Geneva. They are bombarding civilian centers. No warning was given. No demands have been made. This is not a battle. This is a massacre." The Valkyrie High Speaker's tongue flickered. "I am sure there has been some misunderstanding. Perhaps your colonists provoked our forces. Perhaps they were harboring insurgents. The Valkyrie Empire does not attack without reason. New Geneva is a world of schools and libraries," Elena said. "It has no military, no weapons, no strategic value. It has 12 million civilians, including the largest population of human children outside Earth." She paused. The silence in the chamber was absolute. "The current death toll is over 1 million. It continues to rise." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some of the delegates seemed genuinely shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. The Synthera Collective's representative shifted in its tank, tentacles moving nervously. The Valkyrie High Speaker was not among the uncomfortable ones. He looked almost pleased. "Regrettable, if true," he said. "But we have only your word for this. Human technology is primitive and easily fooled. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning. Perhaps this is another attempt to slander the Valkyrie Empire with false accusations." Elena stared at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled. It was not the diplomatic smile she had worn for 200 years. It was something else entirely. Something that made the Valkyrie High Speaker's tongue stop flickering. "I was born on New Geneva," Elena said quietly. "My parents still live there. My sister's children attend school there. The university where I learned to speak 17 languages is there. The library where I read my first book about the stars is there." She took a step forward. "For 200 years, humanity has been patient. We have followed your rules. We have filed our complaints. We have accepted your insults and your cruelty, and your endless, casual contempt. We have done this because we believed in peace. We believed that someday, somehow, the galaxy would choose to do the right thing. Another step. Today, you have shown us that our belief was misplaced. You do not want peace. You want submission. And when slaves refuse to know their place, you destroy their homes and murder their children." She was at the center of the chamber now, surrounded by delegates from every species in the Concord. They were all watching her, some with fear, some with confusion, a few with something that might have been shame. "The United Human Coalition hereby withdraws from the Galactic Concord," Elena announced. Her voice rang through the chamber like a bell. We invoke the right of retribution under natural law, which predates your council and supersedes it. This law is older than your civilizations. It is older than your species. It is the law that governs all living things. When you harm us, we have the right to harm you back. The Velkari High Speaker finally seemed to understand that something had changed. You cannot withdraw, he said. The Concord does not permit it. If you leave, you become enemies of the entire galaxy. Elena turned to face him directly. Good, she said. Then at least you will finally take us seriously. She began walking toward the exit. Her delegation rose and followed her, their faces as calm and cold as hers. Wait, the Kethron chief delegate called out. Ambassador, please. Let us discuss this. Perhaps there is a way to address your concerns. Perhaps we can find a diplomatic solution. Elena stopped at the doorway. She looked back at the assembled species, all of them watching her with varying degrees of fear and confusion. For 200 years, we asked for diplomatic solutions. For 200 years, you ignored us. For 200 years, we buried our dead and swallowed our grief, and continued to believe in your systems. She shook her head slowly. No more. Now you will see what humanity is truly capable of. Now you will learn the price of our patience. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow it carried to every corner of the chamber. May whatever gods you pray to have mercy on you, because we will not. She walked out. The doors closed behind her. Within the hour, every human in Concord space had vanished. Diplomats, merchants, travelers, all of them. They simply disappeared, as if they had never existed. Ships that should have taken weeks to reach human space made the journey in hours, using technologies no one knew humanity possessed. The galaxy waited for humanity's response. They did not have to wait long. Admiral Chen Wei received the order while standing on the bridge of the Remembrance. The message was short and simple. The time has come. Show them who we are. He looked out at his fleet. 12,000 warships, the work of generations, all of them ready for this moment. All ships, he said, his voice steady. Prepare for combat operations. We move immediately, and we do not stop until the galaxy understands that humanity is done being patient. The fleet activated its engines. Faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen, they moved toward Velkari space. The war had begun. High Commander Vexral was celebrating his victory when the report started coming in. He had gathered his senior officers in the command center of his flagship to watch the final bombardment of New Geneva. The planet's surface was covered in fire now. Smoke rose from every major city. The death toll had passed 3 million and was still climbing. This is what happens to species that forget their place, Vexral told his officers. The humans will remember this lesson for 1,000 years. They will teach their children to bow before the Velkari, and their children's children, forever. His officers nodded and made sounds of agreement. Some of them looked uncomfortable, but none dared to argue. Vexral was not known for tolerating disagreement. Then the communications officer's console lit up with emergency alerts. High Commander, the officer said, his voice tight with confusion. We are receiving reports from across the Empire. Multiple fleets are detecting unknown vessels entering Velkari space. Vexral waved a clawed hand dismissively. Unknown vessels? Impossible. Our sensors cover every approach to our territory. Nothing can enter without our knowledge. That is what the reports say, High Commander. The vessels appeared without warning, no faster than light signatures, no sensor contacts. They simply appeared. More alerts flashed across the console. Then more. Within seconds, the entire board was glowing red. How many vessels? Vexral demanded. The officer stared at his screen. His scales had gone pale. Thousands, High Commander. Possibly tens of thousands. They are everywhere. Every military installation in the Empire is reporting contacts. Vexral strode to the main display and called up a galaxy-wide view. What he saw made him freeze. Human ships were everywhere. Not attacking yet, just appearing. They surrounded Velkari shipyards and military bases and defense platforms. They hung in orbit above Velkari colony worlds. They blocked every major trade route and hyperspace lane. In a single moment, without firing a shot, the human fleet had surrounded the entire Velkari Empire. This is impossible, Vexral breathed. They are primitives. They have no technology. They have no fleet. This must be a trick. High Commander, the communications officer said. We are receiving a transmission. It is being broadcast on all frequencies, across all Valkyrie space. The main display flickered, and a human face appeared. It was a man, perhaps 60 years old, with gray hair and calm, dark eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations except a single emblem on his chest, the symbol of the United Human Coalition. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Human Defense Force," he said. His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. "Your attack on New Geneva has been observed. 3 million of our people are dead. Children, teachers, families. They had no weapons. They posed no threat. You killed them because you could." Admiral Chen Wei looked directly at the camera. It felt like he was looking directly at Vexral. "For 200 years humanity has been patient. We have endured your insults and your cruelty. We have followed your laws and accepted your judgments. We have done this because we believed in peace." His expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Your attack on New Geneva has ended our patience. What follows is not revenge. Revenge is emotional and messy. What follows is justice, delivered with precision. We will disable every military asset you possess. We will remove your ability to ever threaten us again, and we will do it without becoming the monsters you think we are." He leaned forward slightly. "Watch closely. This is what humanity is capable of. This is what we have been capable of for a very long time. And this is why you should never have pushed us." The transmission ended. Vexral screamed orders at his officers. "All ships, battle stations, target the human fleet, destroy them." The Valkyrie fleet responded with well-trained precision. Weapons powered up, targeting systems locked onto human ships, energy cannons fired in a coordinated barrage that should have devastated any enemy. Nothing happened. The energy beams reached the human ships and simply vanished. No explosions, no impacts. The humans had shields unlike anything the Valkyrie had ever encountered. Weapons that had conquered 100 species were completely useless against them. Then the humans fired back. Their weapons did not behave like normal energy weapons. They did not create beams or bolts of light. Instead, something simply happened to the Valkyrie ships. Systems failed. Engines went dark. Weapons stopped working. Communications cut out. One by one, the mighty Valkyrie warships went silent. "What is happening?" Vexral demanded. "Why are our ships losing power?" "Unknown, High Commander," an officer reported. "The human weapons appear to be targeting our power systems directly. They are not destroying our ships. They are simply turning them off." Vexral stared at the display in disbelief. His entire fleet was going dark. Thousands of years of military technology, the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, were being shut down like lights in an empty room. Within an hour, every Valkyrie military ship in the Empire was disabled. Not destroyed. Disabled. Floating in space with no power, no weapons, no ability to fight or flee. Admiral Chen Wei's voice came over the emergency communication channel. "Your soldiers will be returned to you alive. Your ships will be repaired. Your worlds are not harmed. This is more mercy than you showed our children. Remember it." The Synthera Collective had been watching the destruction of the Valkyrie military with growing fear. They had been preparing their own defenses, calling in their own fleets, activating their own weapons. It did not matter. The humans had been inside Synthera systems for decades. Every communication network, every computer system, every piece of technology that used software, all of it had been quietly infiltrated by human programmers. They had not done anything with this access. They had simply waited, watching, learning everything. Now they used what they had learned. The Synthera fleet received orders to attack the human ships surrounding their territory. Their commanders input the coordinates. Their weapons locked on. They prepared to fire, and nothing happened. Every ship received different orders. Some turned to face their own allies. Some shut down their weapons entirely. Some simply stopped responding to commands. The Synthera communication network, the pride of their civilization, had become a weapon against them. Within hours, the entire collective was in chaos. Ships could not coordinate. Commanders could not reach their superiors. Governments could not communicate with their citizens. The Synthera, who had built their power on information and communication, found themselves blind and deaf. Human ships moved through Synthera space unopposed. They did not attack. They simply removed weapons from Synthera military vessels and disabled defense platforms. They worked with surgical precision, never touching civilian systems, never harming anyone who did not pose a direct threat. When they were finished, the Synthera Collective had no military capability remaining. Their ships could still fly. Their people could still live their lives. But they could never again threaten anyone. A human commander broadcast a message to the Collective's government. For 50 years, pirates operating from your space killed our people. You claimed you could not stop them. Now you will find that piracy is no longer possible. We have removed the tools that enabled it. Use this opportunity to build something better. The Kethron Dominion prepared for invasion. Their military leaders studied the reports from Velkari and Synthara space and prepared accordingly. They reinforced their borders. They activated ancient defense systems. They called up every soldier and every ship. The humans did not invade. Instead, they did something far more devastating. For 10,000 years, the Kethron had conquered and enslaved other species. Dozens of races lived under their control, forced to work, forced to obey, stripped of freedom and dignity. The Kethron considered this natural. The strong ruled the weak. That was simply how the universe worked. The humans disagreed. Ships appeared in every Kethron system where enslaved populations lived. They broadcast messages in every language, promising freedom to anyone who wanted it. They provided weapons to those who wanted to fight. They provided transport to those who wanted to leave. And they provided something even more important: hope. For the first time in thousands of years, the enslaved species of the Kethron Dominion saw that their masters could be challenged. They saw ships that the Kethron could not defeat. They saw technology that the Kethron could not match. They saw that the universe was not what they had been told it was. Uprisings began within days. The Kethron military was strong, but it could not be everywhere at once. While their soldiers tried to suppress rebellion on one world, 10 more worlds rose up. While their ships blockaded one system, 50 more systems declared independence. The human fleet did not fight for the enslaved species. They simply made sure the Kethron could not use their overwhelming force to crush the rebellions. Every time a Kethron battle group moved to destroy a rebel world, human ships appeared and disabled them, just as they had disabled the Velkari. Within 6 months, the Kethron Dominion had collapsed, not conquered by humanity, torn apart by the species they had enslaved for millennia. The former slaves built new governments, new societies, new lives. Many of them sent messages of thanks to humanity. Some offered alliances. Some asked for nothing except to be left in peace. Humanity accepted all of these responses with equal grace. They had not freed these species to gain allies. They had freed them because slavery was wrong. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in recorded history, the council chamber was nearly empty. The Velkari delegation had not been heard from since their fleet was disabled. The Synthera could not coordinate well enough to send representatives. The Kethron no longer existed as a unified power. The remaining species looked at each other with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. What do we do? The chief delegate of the Morathi Confederation asked. The humans have destroyed 3 of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy without killing a single soldier. What chance do we have? They have not destroyed anyone, another delegate pointed out. They have simply removed the ability to cause harm. The Velkari still exist. The Synthara still exist. Even the Kethron people still exist, though their government does not. Is that supposed to make us feel better? They could do the same to any of us at any moment. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. Admiral Chen Wei looked out at the assembled delegates. We have no interest in conquering you, he said. We have no interest in ruling the galaxy. We want only what we have always wanted: to live in peace, to be treated with dignity, to raise our children without fear. He paused. The Velkari attacked a world of schools and libraries. They killed 3 million innocent people, including children. We responded by removing their ability to ever do such a thing again. We did not kill their soldiers. We did not destroy their worlds. We showed them more mercy than they showed us. His voice hardened. But make no mistake. If any species attacks humanity again, our response will be the same. We will not destroy you. We will simply take away everything that makes you dangerous, and we will do it so completely, so thoroughly, that your great-grandchildren will still be rebuilding. He looked directly at the delegates. The old order is finished. The Concord, as you knew it, is over. What comes next is up to you. You can build something better, something based on mutual respect and true equality. Or you can continue as before and learn the same lessons the Valkyrie learned. The transmission ended. The delegates sat in silence for a long time. Finally, one of them spoke. Perhaps, she said slowly, it is time for the galaxy to change. No one disagreed. 1 year had passed since the attack on New Geneva. The planet was being rebuilt. The craters where cities had stood were being filled. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen. Schools were opening again. Libraries were being restocked with books from across human space. Children were playing in parks that had been killing fields 12 months ago. Ambassador Elena Vance stood at the edge of one such park, watching children run and laugh and play. These were not the same children who had died in the bombardment. Many of them were orphans from other worlds, brought to New Geneva to be raised in the very place where humanity's patience had finally broken. It was a symbol, she thought. A reminder that humanity would not let the attack define them forever, but they would never forget it, either. Behind her stood the Memorial of Silence. It was a wall of white stone, stretching for 3 kilometers, covered with names. 3 million names, written in letters so small they could barely be read. Each name was a person. Each person had been someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. Delegations from across the galaxy had been coming to the memorial for months. Some came to pay respects. Some came to understand. Some came because they were afraid, and they hoped that showing remorse might protect them from humanity's wrath. Today's delegation was different. They arrived without ceremony, in simple transport ships, without military escort. They wore no symbols of rank or power. They came not as representatives of governments, but as individuals seeking something harder than victory. Reconciliation. Elena watched them approach. There were Synthera, their tentacles moving nervously in their transport tanks. There were former Kethron nobles, stripped of their titles and their power, coming to terms with a universe where they were no longer masters of anything. There were even a few Valkyrie, young ones mostly, who had been born after the war and did not share their elders' hatred. And at the front of the group walked High Commander Vexral. He was old and broken now. His scales had lost all their color. He moved slowly, supported by a walking frame that clicked against the ground with each step. The mighty warrior who had ordered the destruction of New Geneva was barely able to stand. Elena felt many things when she looked at him. Anger, grief, the memory of watching her home world burn while standing powerless in the council chamber, the memory of 3 million names that would never be spoken again. But she did not feel hate. Hate was a fire that destroyed the one who carried it. She had learned that lesson long ago. Vexral stopped before her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, painfully, the High Commander lowered himself to his knees. It was clearly agonizing for him. His old body was not made for such gestures, but he did it anyway. I was wrong, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. About everything, about your species, about strength and weakness, about what it means to be powerful. He looked up at Elena. His eyes were wet. I killed your world because I thought you were insects. I thought you would scurry and hide and learn to fear us. I thought that was how the universe worked. He shook his head slowly. I was a fool. You are not insects. You never were. You were simply patient. And patience, I have learned, is the greatest strength of all. Elena looked down at him for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. Get up, she said. Her voice was not warm, but it was not cold either. It was simply tired. Kneeling does not bring back the dead. Neither does guilt. The only thing that matters now is what we do next. She helped him to his feet. He seemed surprised by the gesture. I expected you to kill me, he admitted. I hoped you would, actually. It would be easier than living with what I have done. Easier for you, Elena said, but not for anyone else. Death is not justice. It is just death. We have had enough of it. She turned to address all the delegates. Humanity did not fight this war to punish you. We fought to protect ourselves. We showed mercy not because you deserved it, but because we believe in a different way of doing things. Violence begets violence. Cruelty begets cruelty. The cycle continues forever unless someone chooses to break it. She gestured at the memorial behind her. 3 million of our people died here. Their names are on that wall. They can never be brought back. No apology, no reparation, no gesture of reconciliation can undo what was done to them. Her voice softened. But we can honor their memory by building something better. We can create a galaxy where no species ever does to another what was done to us. We can prove that their deaths, though tragic, were not meaningless. She looked at each delegate in turn. That is why you are here today. Not to beg for forgiveness, not to negotiate surrender. You are here to help us build a new future. The negotiations took 3 months. They were held on New Geneva, in a building that had been a school before the bombardment. It had been rebuilt specifically for this purpose, a symbol of hope rising from the ashes of despair. Every surviving species sent representatives, not just diplomats, but scientists, philosophers, teachers, artists. Humanity wanted input from all parts of galactic society, not just the powerful. Ambassador Elena Vance led the human delegation, as she had for so many years. But her role was different now. She was not pleading for justice. She was helping to create it. The old Concord failed, she said at the opening session. It was built on power, not principle. The strong did as they pleased, and the weak suffered. Laws were weapons, used by those who understood them to exploit those who did not. She looked around the chamber. We will not repeat those mistakes. The new Concord will be different. It will be based on one simple principle. Every species, no matter how young, how small, how quiet, deserves dignity. Every being has value. Every life matters. The Synthera chief delegate raised a tentacle. How will this principle be enforced? The old Concord had laws, but no one obeyed them. The old Concord had no consequences for breaking the law, Elena replied. The strong could ignore any rule they chose. That will not be possible anymore. She called up a holographic display showing the positions of human fleet elements throughout the galaxy. Humanity will serve as the guarantor of the new order. Our ships will patrol the trade routes. Our technology will monitor communications for signs of aggression. Our forces will respond to any violation of the basic principles we establish here. The chamber stirred uneasily. You ask us to accept human rule, the Morathi delegate said. How is that different from what came before? Elena shook her head. We do not seek to rule. We seek to protect. There is a difference. She deactivated the display. We will not interfere in internal matters. We will not tell you how to govern yourselves. We will not take your resources or demand tribute. We ask nothing except that you treat each other with basic decency. She paused. But if any species attacks another without provocation, if any species enslaves another, if any species commits atrocities against the innocent, we will respond, swiftly, completely, without mercy. Her voice was calm, but everyone in the chamber felt the weight of her words. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Humanity has learned that patience alone is not enough. Sometimes, protection requires strength. We have that strength now. We will use it to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Admiral Chen Wei spoke for the first time. He had been sitting quietly at Elena's side throughout the session. We did not want this responsibility, he said. We did not build our fleet to become the galaxy's police force. We built it to protect ourselves from species that saw our patience as weakness. He stood. But we have seen what happens when there is no one to enforce basic decency. We have buried 3 million of our people because no one would stop the Velkari from destroying them. We will not let that happen to anyone else. He looked at Vexeral, who sat in the back of the chamber, old and broken and defeated. The Velkari believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They were wrong. Strength without wisdom is just brutality. Strength without compassion is just cruelty. True strength is knowing when to fight, when to show mercy, and when to build instead of destroy. He sat back down. We hope you will learn from our example. But if you do not, you will learn from our response. The Treaty of Remembrance was signed on the first anniversary of the New Geneva attack. Every species in the galaxy was represented. Even the Velkari, what was left of them. Even the former Kethron nobles, even the Synthera, who were still rebuilding their shattered communications networks. The treaty was simple. It did not contain thousands of pages of legal language. It did not have loopholes or exceptions or complicated procedures. It was written in plain words that anyone could understand. All species are equal in dignity and worth. No species may attack another without provocation. No species may enslave another. No species may commit atrocities against civilians. Humanity will enforce these principles. Violations will have consequences. Elena Vance signed the treaty last, as the representative of the enforcing power. Her hand was steady, Her face showed no emotion, but when she set down the pen, she allowed herself a small smile. "It is done," she said quietly. 200 years of patience. 17 million wrongs documented. 3 million dead. And finally, we have built something worth having. Admiral Chen Wei stood beside her. "Do you think it will last?" Elena looked out at the assembled delegates. Species that had been enemies for millions of years were talking to each other. Predators and prey. Conquerors and conquered. All of them trying to imagine a different way of living. "I do not know," she admitted. "But I know this. We have given them a chance. That is more than anyone gave us." She turned to face the memorial of silence. 3 million names, stretching to the horizon. "We remember," she said softly. "We will always remember. But we choose not to let our grief become hatred. We choose to build instead of destroy. We choose to protect instead of conquer." She closed her eyes. "That is what humanity is. Not warriors or victims or servants. We are builders. We are protectors. We are the species that was patient long enough to learn what really matters." She opened her eyes. "And now, the galaxy will learn with us." The new galactic concord lasted for 10,000 years. There were challenges, of course. Some species tested the limits. Some tried to find ways around the rules. Some believed that humanity would eventually grow tired of enforcing the peace. They were wrong. Humanity never forgot New Geneva. Every human child learned about the attack and its aftermath. Every human school had a wall of names. Every human community observed a moment of silence on the anniversary of the bombardment. And every human understood that patience was not weakness. That showing mercy did not mean accepting cruelty. That building something better required both the wisdom to know when to hold back and the strength to act when necessary. No species ever forgot the lesson either. For 10,000 years, whenever a government considered aggression, whenever a military leader planned an atrocity, whenever someone thought they could get away with cruelty because no one was watching, they remembered what had happened to the Velkari. They remembered a species that had mocked humanity as insects. They remembered ships that appeared from nowhere, weapons that could not be stopped, an enemy that had been preparing for centuries while pretending to be weak. They remembered that human patience had limits, and they chose peace instead. On the 10,000th anniversary of the Treaty of Remembrance, a memorial service was held on New Geneva. The planet was a garden world now, covered in parks and forests and monuments to those who had died. The old craters had become lakes. The ruined cities had become nature preserves. Life had reclaimed what death had tried to take. The current human ambassador stood before the memorial of silence. She was young, only 40 years old, born on a world that had never known war. "We are here to remember," she said. "Not with anger, not with hatred, but with gratitude. Gratitude for those who showed us that patience is strength. Gratitude for those who taught us that mercy is power. Gratitude for those who proved that even the smallest species can change the galaxy, if they are willing to wait long enough." She touched the wall gently. 3 million names, 3 million lives. They did not die in vain. Their sacrifice created a universe where every species is valued, where every being has dignity, where peace is not just a dream, but a reality. She turned to face the assembled crowd. Humans stood alongside beings from 1,000 worlds, all of them united by the principles of the treaty. The galaxy remembers what humanity endured. It remembers what we did when our patience finally broke. It remembers the lesson we taught with mercy instead of massacre. She smiled. And as long as anyone remembers, the peace will hold. Because no one wants to learn that lesson again. The crowd stood in silence for a long moment. Then, slowly, they began to speak the names. 3 million names, spoken by millions of voices, a chorus of remembrance that rose to the stars. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been tested. Humanity had broken, and in breaking, had transformed, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The stars looked down on New Geneva, just as they had for thousands of years. They had witnessed the attack. They had witnessed the response. They had witnessed the building of a new order, and they would continue to witness, for as long as anyone remembered to look up and wonder what was out there. The answer, it turned out, was hope.